Bob White here, and this is a segment on sharpening. In this case, it's sharpening, how to sharpen loppers. The other day, I was out trimming my trees, and I just noticed that it was getting more and more difficult to cut through certain limbs in certain ways. It was becoming noticeably dull, and I noticed that I had some nicks on my blade. Okay. So to sharpen these, anyway, the first thing I do, excuse me, is take it apart. And a lot of these loppers are made overseas, and so they'll have metric fasteners. So I got a metric wrench here I bought years ago, and it happens to be a 17. Let's see. 16 millimeter, fits pretty good. We'll go with that. And on the other side, the nut. Okay, it's a nylock nut. I like the nylocks because you can adjust the tension on them and the nut won't fall off. It just stays put where it loosens up. Okay, now this is a, a universal crescent wrench. On the one side, it says 8 inches. That's for the American and the British standard of dimensions on the fasteners. On the other side, it says 200 millimeter. That way, it'll go up to 200 millimeter and the metric fasteners. So, in this case, I'll just get it to that size, and we'll loosen it. Now, so the first thing I do is take this apart. I should use the wrench this way, crescent wrench. I should use this way to move the fastener. So we'll take this fastener apart, and now this bolt, you have to be careful of your parts. You got a washer and the bolt. And so first thing I'll do is put my parts together so I don't lose them, which I have a tendency to do. Set them aside. I don't need to wrench this anymore at this point. I'll put that aside. Alright, now we have this part of the loppers, I call it the anvil. Okay, it's the flat side. It's the part that holds the material while your the blade shears into it. Okay, now when you can get a lot of burrs on this edge right here from dents and dings from grit and gravel and sand or whatever's up in the trees when you're cutting through branches, and it'll leave burrs that are sticking up. So I'll take my stones. In this particular case, I have they started out as oil stones, but I'm soaking them in water and trying to get the oil out of them, and because oil leaves a mess. It leaves a black mess with steel. Hey, and the other side is a good coarse one. Now, when I'm sharpening loppers and garden tools and things like that, I'm not needing the very precise, very fine grits like I have with my water stones. My water stones, I keep in water underneath here, and these are my fine grit stones. This is a combination of 3,000 and 8,000 grit, which I use on the finer shears and scissors, like for salons and scissors for pet groomers and such. But just using for farm tools and garden hose and whatever I need to sharpen, take it to an inch. I just use the more coarse grits. Okay, now this lopper, I need this particular one. They have the pivot side needs to be flat. Take those burrs down that are sticking up so they don't interfere with the cutter. And this particular one, you see, it's got grooves in it from grit. That's just what happens. Alright, so I need to take the burrs flat. So I run it across the flat blade. And then that takes those burrs back down to the cutting plane, the cutting surface. It don't take much, but you can feel when there's a burr there. And I don't have very much. Maybe this one's pretty good. Okay. Now the other thing these stones is you keep them against other stones. Okay. That maintains their flatness. And anything that accumulates in your stone, little pieces of metal which build up in the stone, it keeps them flat and keeps them out of the way, so they don't cause issues. Just keeps your stones flat, and flatness is kind of important in a lot of different things. Okay. So, all right. So that's the anvil. We got the anvil flat. Now comes the cutting blade. Now this cutting blade has a couple different angles to it. Now these particular one, okay, you've got a main main bevel here, and it goes all the way down. Now in the Japanese style, this bevel goes all the way to the cutting edge. Okay. The German style, they put a secondary bevel. They put a secondary bevel in there at the edge, and that'd be anywhere from 30 to 45 degrees along that edge. Okay. And that's the way this one was manufactured, and so I'll continue to do that. But that angle doesn't need to go very far. Just a very slight amount right at the edge, because it's only the edge that cuts. It doesn't cut back farther up into the thing. It cuts right at the very edge. It's the only place that it actually shears. Okay, so I don't like grinders. Grinders. Here's a piece of ceramic I use. This is about the size of grinding wheels. So the grinding wheels, and you're usually grinding them right across the deal, 90 degrees, and it'll leave an arc in. It's a concave arc. Okay. Now that concave arc goes back farther up into the wedge of the metal than I really want to go. I prefer the Japanese kind, where it brings that main bevel right down to the edge, but in this case it's a compromise between the two. So the first thing I want to do is, once again, take the pivoting area along with, okay, there's an area that has a burr, so take it back to the flat. Oops. So you're perfectly flat. There's no burrs sticking down into the cutting area. If it's a nick on the cutter, it'll leave a nick on the anvil. So then it transfers. Okay, so we'll get that pretty close. And, now on the flat side, I like to use ceramics. Ceramics leave a nice flat edge, flat material. Ceramics have a very fine texture to them. This is probably about, very high grit, but it also is it can be very aggressive cutting. All right, now to put on this edge, I'll maintain that. I'll put on like about a 45-degree angle. Now if I have a heavy burr here, which this one area is kind of, okay, I'll take this edge here and I'll draw from the thicker metal down to the edge. And what that does is it draws the metal. On the microscopic scale, it draws the metal out. On the microscopic level, metal is plastic. Steel is plastic. It clings to itself. And what you'll find is it leaves when you do that, it'll leave a burr. It'll leave a burr on this edge. And it's that burr, that's that extra metal. And we're going to use that burr. We'll sharpen that burr, if you want to call it that. Okay, so I've got a burr on this side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to that 45-degree angle, and on this upper side, and I will bring it down, and as I'm doing it, you may see it get shiny. Well, that's because it's a finer grit. And I'm also pulling it 90 degrees to the cutting edge. Okay? Because on the microscopic level, even at this grit, it leaves tiny little teeth. Little teeth sticking up. And it is those tiny little teeth, even on the extreme sharpness of katana sword blades. They have very tiny teeth. And it's that teeth that gives them their sharpness. Because an absolutely flat razor edge doesn't have bite. It doesn't start to bite. So I'm pulling this down, and you can maybe see, hopefully see, it starts to get real shiny. That's okay. Now on loppers, I'm not really interested in getting razor sharp, because razor sharp isn't really necessary because of the power you have with handles. And also, razor edge goes away real quick because of the grit and such. So a razor edge you don't really need. Alright, so now on the flat side, the same way, only this time, instead of going out away from the metal, I will pull back into, since I'm putting on the finishing edge, I'm sharpening that burr, if you want to say that. So I will draw it back into the main body of the metal. And by doing that, I can go back and forth between the two. Since I'm sharpening that thing, I'm going to go toward the thicker metal on both. Anytime I go in this side, well, if I pull it, it would make a burr on the bottom side. But if I'm going this way, it more or less sharpens that burr. And the side, I'll keep it as flat as I can. But even flat, I'm not sharpening way back here. I am very slightly, I mean just very slightly, putting the pressure on that one edge. Okay. And you can check with your fingers. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's getting pretty sharp. Pretty sharp. Sharp enough. Good enough. Alright, so now I'm done with the sharpening. You don't have any burrs. It's got a good, oh yeah, good edge there. Good edge. So now I put it back together. Get out the handle. And, oh yeah, gotta get it right, oriented right. Don't forget to put it back together correctly. Alright, get my fastener. Now in this particular case, I use the blade toward the part I'm going to be cutting. And I'll put the nut, which is more higher dimension, I'll put that on the back side. It could go either way, but I believe this is the way it was made. And we'll put the nut back on. Here's my metric wrenches and my metric crescent wrench. Okay, crescent wrenches have the way I'm tightening it now is the way that your wrench is supposed to move when you're not this way, going this way, but this way, going this way. That's the way the wrench is designed, so it maintains square on the surface. All right, bring this down to where, okay, real snug. I'll back up just a bit. That should be a little bit more, a little bit too tight. Back it off just a bit. Not much. Too much. Oh yeah. Good. Good. The next thing I do is I put on lubricant right here on the sliding surface. I like WD-40. Works real good. And it don't take much. Okay, people, do you know what WD-40 stands for? Who knows what that means? Okay, that'll be another explanation later on. Okay, rub that in, rub it in with your fingers. Just, you can coach them and watch out that blade. You just got it razor sharp, so don't get your finger in there and cut yourself. That's been known to happen. How do I know? Because I've done it. Who else hasn't made mistakes in their lives? Alright, so that feels good. Looks good. Everything's back together. Sounds good. Alright, so we're done. We're done, and that ends this segment on sharpening a lopper. And that word will end.